Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth webinar of our series titled Designing Healthy Spaces Post-COVID. Today, we are going to be focusing on redefining urban spaces, smart cities, and campuses. I'm Nishant Goel, urban planner and architect, a smart city planner, working with Novak Architects and Engineers. So, what is a smart city? We all know that the government launched this scheme in 2015. But what does it incorporate? What is it about? Well, the broader vision is to drive economic growth and improve the quality of life of the people through providing better core infrastructure services and a clean, sustainable environment. The government has listed out 10 core infrastructure elements in a smart city, which range from providing water, electricity, solid waste management, sustainable environment, safety and security for children and citizens in general, health, education for the citizens, and all of this linked through a robust IT platform to enable digital connectivity, public transport, urban mobility, and solid waste management. So a smart city is primarily categorized into seven main headings, ranging from economic development to safety and governance, which we'll look into detail in the next few slides. But all of these are aimed at providing an integrated development with efficient urban services, sustainable growth, and enhanced livability for the citizens. So the first element that I'm going to look at is integrated urban infrastructure. From our experience of designing smart city, the road development is one of the primary focus areas of the integrated urban infrastructure projects. It looks at channelizing and streamlining the services through utility ducts or corridors, through making public and pedestrian friendly spaces, to cycle tracks, NMT tracks, ensuring better parking, better access through the roads and the transport system, and implementing various smart features like the multi-level parking systems and the smart parking systems. Then we also look at rejuvenating open spaces in the city. These could be lakes, open spaces, spaces which are lying dilapidated, or new spaces that can be created on land available, etc. And then there is, of course, the development of commercial centers, illumination of spaces, and the looking at the city transit system. An important point to make here is that the smart city model works on the area-based development technique, where each smart city has highlighted or earmarked an area which they are undertaking the development of in the first phase. And hopefully, once this phase is complete, the best strategies and the best projects from this phase can be implemented in the other parts of the city going forward. Right, so economic development. How can the smart city mission actually enable economic development of the city? So for this, we look at what are the economic generators in a city. Are there any artisans or crafts or handicrafts which are dying down in the city because there is no support for them? Like in the smart city that we are working on, we found that the city has a rich heritage of handicrafts, and we're making a handicraft center for them, which will not only provide them better working environment, but will also provide market linkage, whether it's internal or external linkage, as well as making a training center there so that the handicraft doesn't die and more people take it up. Then, of course, there is creation of a central business district for businesses to thrive, and office spaces, and etc. And then a very important project is incubation center. So promoting entrepreneurship amongst the youth of the citizens of the city. Again, the urban heart as well is focused towards the artisans and providing them market linkage, where we'll be integrating interpretation center for the city, the shopping, as well as recreation activities in one campus. Then we have the safety and the governance parameters. These parameters are linked to the digitization of the city. So each city is going to be is now going to have an integrated command and control center, which is going to be the new nerve center of the city, and will integrate all the functions and the services of a city under one platform. The main features of this platform are going to be effective surveillance systems, smart traffic management, public information systems, environmental sensors, utilities. All the utilities are going to be sort of mapped on this platform, as well as effective waste management. Then all cities are implementing the GIS mapping so that the existing data of the city, whether it is for taxation purposes or land records, health systems, infrastructure, transportation, resource management, etc., are mapped, and the data is there for the city to deal with. Of course, then there'll be a lot of e-kiosks set up, which enable you to access this platform from various sources. Then the next important category is the community and health amenities. These range from education to health to sports activities that are going to be made in the city. So we're looking at smart classes, where it's upgradation of government schools with smart class infrastructure, creating open gyms in parks, smart toilets, health ATMs, she lounges, spaces for senior citizens, then indoor sports complex, so to enable healthy living, sports parks within existing parks, and then cattle parks, so that we give the cattle a safe and secure area to live in, and not be prevalent in the streets of the city. Then we come to the environment. All smart cities are looking at rejuvenation and bettering the existing environment in cities. So they look at water. So we're looking at dilapidated ponds in the city, where the water has really turned black, and we're using natural STP methods to actually rejuvenate these ponds and create very good public spaces around it, and basically promote placemaking and efficient public interaction in these spaces. Then, of course, the drains. The photograph here shows that all cities are plagued by unhealthy and unhygienic drains. But there are very innovative techniques by which we can actually line the drains and treat them as well online through natural methods. And we are doing that in a couple of smart cities. And then solar rooftops, generating solar energy in all the government buildings, providing solar trees at different points, creating awareness about clean energy. Vertical gardens, very effective when we have flyovers and roads which have a lot of traffic. They not only provide better environment, but also act as noise barriers, as clean air agents. Then we're looking at enabling bike sharing services, electric bike sharing services across cities to enable a more sustainable method of commuting. And solid waste management, extremely important to look into, because all our cities are plagued with a problem of legacy waste. So biomining is being adopted to clear out the legacy waste in the city. And then we look at all the aspects, right from door-to-door collection, segregation of waste, transferring that waste, making these little plants, plants which would actually get dispose of the waste, whether it's plastic waste or it's wet waste. Composting sites maybe, like in the city that we are working in, the dairy and mandi waste is a big issue, so we're looking at that. Sanitary waste management, creating landfill sites, the construction and demolition waste management, etc. So smart cities are finally looking at waste management as a holistic exercise for the whole city, and not in the segregated piecemeal way that has been looked at till now. Right, so that's about a general overview of the smart cities. Now we actually come to what a smart campus is about. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs took out an advisory which lists out the basic parameters of smart cities, which can actually become a norm in planning your residential townships, office campuses, and any campus in general. And they've listed out 14 basic parameters on which we can make our campuses as mini smart cities. We've clubbed them into three broad heads. The first one being integrated physical infrastructure, then smart IT enabled systems, and then efficient um, electricity, water, drainage, etc. So in integrated physical infrastructure, we actually look uh, at transforming the campus from a vehicle driven campus to a pedestrian and a people friendly campus. So we look at creating pedestrian zones, making sure that the internal space within the campus is pedestrian friendly. It's easy for access for differently abled people, for senior citizens, children, for the youth. Create some exercise zones, create some sports areas within the campus, and promote electric vehicles. Then all the infrastructure is made underground and is made safe so that there are no hazards. So this is what we do in the infrastructure domain, physical infrastructure domain. And then we look at the IT enabled systems. So all campuses are made digital friendly. We make these mini little IoT platforms which actually manage all the infrastructure that is there in that campus, whether it's things related to your electrical installations, your water, or any other installation. So you get a real-time monitoring and a tracking of all the infrastructure elements within the campus. We look at intelligent traffic management systems, good parking systems, smart parking systems, so that there is no chaos within the campus. And we also look at empowering, in fact, each resident with the knowledge of how his society is functioning, how efficiently it's functioning. Then we look at efficient electricity, water, and drainage systems. So first and foremost, there should be assured electric and water supply throughout in the campus. And then we look at making it more efficient. So all the services have to be efficient, but all the buildings have to be energy efficient as well. In fact, the guideline says that at least 80% of the buildings in the campus should be energy efficient or green buildings. Then we look at water recycling. How can we recycle the water? Look at rainwater. How can we actually reuse it or recharge the ground water effectively with it? Smart metering systems, and generate solar energy from our campus. So after this introduction, it now brings me to talk about COVID really, and how can we make our smart cities and smart campuses COVID ready? What are these little immediate steps, these low-hanging fruits that we can, implement and ensure that we are achieving safety, hygiene, and healthy spaces within our urban spaces? So for safety and security, first and foremost, there are about 47 cities which have already implemented the integrated command and control center. And these centers have been very effective in monitoring and tracking the COVID situation in these cities. Going forward, we can actually enhance the capabilities of these ICCCs by including, people density tracking, movement tracking, contact tracing of suspected, people who have been contaminated by a disease, ensuring face mask usage in public spaces, and of course e-surveillance. So these are the things that can be easily done through the ICCCs already installed. And then, of course, when we actually use public spaces, so what are the safety and security physical parameters? So the first one is actually creating thresholds where we can actually screen people and ensure that people are not contaminated who are using the public space. And if they are, then proper isolation rooms have been made for keeping them and housing them effectively. And then drones are a good way of screening and monitoring people. And of course, the thermal imaging cameras in public spaces are going to come in. And then we come to the hygiene, where social distancing is very, very important going forward. So pedestrian areas, A lot of parks will see, zones where a family can inhabit, so that they are not, they're sort of maintaining the distance from other inhabitants. There will be, separate pedestrian areas so that people can walk at a safe distance from each other. The benches in the park will need to maintain the safe social distancing distance. So you might have the seat in the middle taken away. And of course, if there are areas which are more pedestrian friendly and less of traffic, then you could temporarily convert them either by barricading or by, you know, painting the road surface and giving additional space to cyclists or pedestrians. Then public transport, there are a lot of advisories being issued now, because gradually cities are looking at starting or restarting their public transport. So typically, when we look at buses, the capacity of buses is being reduced because there are lesser number of people. The sketch here shows that the red seats are not going to be used anymore in these buses. So a typical you know large bus would actually now just have about 20 people. Then there will be, the parking will be done in alternate bays. The seating in bus stops will be made social distancing ready. So it will mean lesser number of people at bus stops, in buses, etc. Proper sanitization. Even the metro has come out with guidelines, that they are now going to be operating at about one third the capacity. So each coach is going to have about 100 people, 80 to 100 people, which earlier used to have 300 people. They're going to implement thermal screening, sanitization, and of course, all ticketing is now going to be digital. There's not going to be any tokens or card tickets, etc. So, and then parking facilities. These are quite easy to do. You can look at mechanical means or touchless or automated parking systems, where we don't need face to face or manual interaction and the normal paper receipts, etc. The surface car parks can immediately become an alternate parking zone, but of course this will lead to reduction in the number of car parking spaces. And then markets. For markets, we're talking about a hyperlocal micro market system, where you can have this grid which is earmarked on the ground, and people actually, only one person is there on each grid. There'll be a lot of floor markings to direct people, and then around this grid you can have these various market shops or whatever spaced out, so that people are maintaining the social distancing norms. So new markets will be planned, keeping these planning techniques in mind now. Sanitization, extremely important, whether it's at public spaces, in offices or public buildings. We'll need to have sensor driven or touchless sanitization areas. Airports can have mechanical sanitization done. We'll have to look at antiviral surfaces, which would come in all our public spaces. And then regular, of course, sanitization processes being done. Contactless equipment. Maybe operating equipment through the QR code scanners or card scanners or retina scanners. Then all our public toilets should have sensor-driven touchless taps, touchless sanitizers, etc., in public spaces. And then awareness programs. This is very important. I mean, our signages play a very, very big role in creating awareness in the city. So a typical signage, which used to read, like this, would actually now talk about social distancing and would show people walking at a safe distance apart, keep a minimum distance. Signages showcasing various techniques that can be implemented to maintain social distancing and adhere to the new hygiene will become commonplace. And then amongst the workforce, regular drills, pledges, engagement programs, just to ensure that everyone is educated about the new hygiene. And then, of course, the healthy spaces aspect. all the green spaces, all open spaces, we should now focus on creating more and more green spaces. Go back to earth, go back to nature. It, uh, but these green spaces will have a different character going forward. You might actually see a lot of hedges happening rather than making just large tracts of grass. People might actually start looking at at hedges or walking tracks which are separated by hedges, so that the usability of the green space becomes as per the new social distancing norms. Of course, ISHRE has taken out guidelines for fresh air in spaces and filtration, which will need to be followed in all public spaces if they are mechanically ventilated. And of course, the waste management will have to be efficient. So these are a few things that I feel will be implemented in all our campuses and cities going forward. But will there actually be a shift in how we plan cities? Uh, when when we are rethinking master plans, when we're doing urban planning policies for a city, will we actually see a shift now after COVID? So I leave you with a few questions and some ideas, some food for thought, like. Will we actually now look at creating regional urban centers rather than just having a few cities which drive all the economic activity? But the migrant problem has probably created a need to think about small regional urban centers which actually promote local lifestyle and local living and local economy. And then public transport, we looked at various methods that and advisories that have come out related to our public transport. But is it actually going to remain feasible now? If we're going to be operating at one-third capacity, is our public transport going to remain financially feasible? Or what are the changes that will have to come in public transport? And then will people actually now start using public transport as much? Or will there be a spike in individual car, bike, scooter, or cycle ownership? People will look at shorter commutes. They will want to reduce their exposure to public interface in their commuting times. So are we looking at cycling, NMT? How do our green spaces change? How does our green spaces earmarking in master plan change? And then core services. I think all master plans are going to lay a lot of thrust on clear access to core services, because in the event of an emergency, the core services are extremely important and require clean movement. So mixed use planning, we've all been talking about it, but is mixed use now going to remain with a few clusters, or is it now actually going to be scattered public spaces, scattered markets, and scattered planning that's going to become the order of the day? So I leave you with some of these. I mean, a lot of these strategies will become clear as we move forward, but these are some initial ideas that I've thrown today. And so thank you very much for listening, and let's drive the change and let's spread the word and spread awareness about COVID and start thinking about how our cities, our environment, our campus will change and how we can actually make them smart and adaptable and flexible to overcome this new problem at hand. So thank you very much for listening.